steps and investigate
There are no grounds. History.
1,000 army of those now around the country.
people who have been infected.
We should have a global name.
And not be afraid to fail.
Very good. Thank you.
You're joining us for News Inside, which brings you the hottest news stories of the week. I'm An Jang-hyun. Let's meet today's panelists. Professor Shin Sang-yup is with us once again. Great to have you back. And we are joined this week by Dr. Bong Young-sik.
Pleased to be here.
Good to have you. As we saw earlier, the World Economic Forum's annual meeting, known as the Davos Forum, is currently underway in Switzerland. So who do we have in attendance this year?
Well, about the 40 heads of states and governments are participating in this forum, and about 2,500 leaders from the business circle and the political circle around the world are also participating in this conference. Well, particularly from Korea this time, the former Minister of Knowledge Economy, Mr. Choi Kyung-wan, is attending to this forum. And for your reference, in 2011, the President Lee Myung-bak participated in this conference in 2011, and the President Park Geun-hye also participated in this forum in 2012.
Well, it's become a meeting ground not only for heads of state and business leaders, but even for showbiz celebrities these days.
Definitely. The Davos Forum is a gathering of not only political dignitaries, but also leaders in business and NGOs, civil societies. So, for instance, Mr. Bill Gates and others are also usual attendance.
Well, the World Economic Forum hosts this annually, and it happens around this time of the year, the Davos Forum. It boasts a rather long history as well. Looking back at the previous forums, what have been some of the topics that were particularly interesting to you?
Well, it has a long history since its beginning in 1971. Now we have a 64th Davos Forum in Switzerland, and I was particularly intrigued to look back Davos Forum in 2014, about 2 years ago, because under the theme of reshaping the world. And unfortunately, it's a very positive forecast about the world economy in 2015 was, in my personal opinion, incorrect. That despite its a positive outlook about the world economy in the next year, the world economy in 2015 did not do well. So
Yes.
it has a grain of salt for all of us to watch the Davos Forum, the gathering of the best and bright minds in the world. Sometimes they may get some things wrong.
Well, it's interesting to see how the themes have changed over the past decades as well.
It's true.
They reflect the changing times,
It's
don't
true,
they?
it's true. Well, as Dr. Bong already explained, that every forum has the main theme. Under the main theme, they have roughly about 200, more than 200, the small topics they discuss about. Particularly, I had quite interesting in the one topic, which was discussed at the in 2014 forum. There was the secret out on the Swiss bank account. Actually, personally, I have lots of interest in Swiss banking system, so I had interest in this topic personally.
Well, this time around, Arirang TV hosted a session on the state of artificial intelligence at the Davos Forum. Well, before we delve into our discussion, let's take a look at the key topics of this year's forum.
The international community faces numerous global challenges. This is highlighted in the 2016 Davos Forum, which is held under the theme, Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The meeting is an opportunity to review the digital transition age, which will greatly affect present and future economic, social, and human behaviors. Furthermore, a comprehensive discussion is being held on the roles that governments and business leaders need to take in order to tackle terrorism in the rapidly changing global security environment. Among the various topics of discussion, the refugee crisis draws the most attention from many countries. According to the WEF's Global Risk Report, international mass involuntary migration was also listed as one of the biggest risks politically and economically. Lastly, the catastrophe caused by climate change due to global warming is also seen as a major problem. The Davos Forum is a venue for selected intellectuals to openly discuss the most pressing issues facing the world. We will examine this year's topics of discussion.
So as we've seen in the video, there are several major topics that are being discussed at this year's forum. Professor Shin, what's on the agenda?
Well, the main theme of this forum is mastering the fourth industrial revolution. Under this theme, actually, they are scheduled to discuss about the security, climate change, and the new normal global growth and the commodity prices. These things are included on the main agenda for this forum.
Well, as Professor Shin mentioned, the theme of Davos 2016 is mastering the fourth industrial revolution. Dr. Bong, what is the fourth industrial revolution?
Yeah, you may wonder, since when we enter into the era of fourth industrial revolution, let alone the first three revolutions. The first industrial revolution occurred in 1784 with the invention of a steam power engine. And that was the beginning of the mechanization of the production in human history. And it was followed by the second industrial revolution based upon the invention of electric power, which enabled to create the mass production line in the era around the 1870. So there was the era when we witnessed the rise of different production systems, such as a division of labor, with the creation of conveyor system and electricity and the mass production. The word Fordism entered into our vocabulary in that period. And the third industrial revolution used electronics and information technology to automate production. People say that its beginning can be traced back to 1969 when the semiconductor was first invented. Now we enter in a new era called the fourth industrial revolution based upon the IT industry.
Well, they're saying this is not merely an extension of the third industrial revolution, but rather a brand new one, a fourth one, for several reasons, including like the speed at which it is happening, the scope of it, as well as the impact it will have on the existing systems.
Yes, for the fourth industrial revolution, we have to think about the outcomes of this revolution. To guess the outcome of this fourth industrial revolution, definitely we have to think about the new technologies, such as digital technology and then biotechnology, nanotechnology, and the online approach technologies cooperation. So I think considering based on this kind of the new technologies to have a successful outcome at the fourth industrial revolution, combination of new technologies will create new the dimension in the technological era. So in terms of speed and scope of the impact, the fourth industrial revolution will be the fastest one over the last three industrial revolutions. In terms of scope of impact as well, it will be the largest and most powerful one comparing with the previous three industrial revolutions.
So in general, everyone seems to be welcoming the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution as it will bring innovation and development. But it is not without its downsides, is it?
Well, everything has a positive side and downside, and it is no exception with regard to the rise of the fourth industrial revolution, because as Professor Shin pointed out, that its speed and the impact are sometimes too much to bear by many industries and countries. So it is interesting that the Davos Forum in 2016 actually tried to organize a panel actually touching upon the very issue, the human anxiety dealing with the impact of the fourth industrial revolution. So the one panel is entitled as Preventing Future Shocks, reminiscent of the very famous forecast by the futurist sociologist Alvin Toffler many decades ago. So it is up to how collectively, individually, the group of countries will deal with the shock of the fourth industrial revolution. The biggest concern, of course, is the loss of humanity, loss of jobs, and the widening gap between those who attain the most progressive and advanced technological skills and those who engage in rather traditional industries.
Do you share these concerns then, such as robotized humanity and loss of jobs?
Yes, particularly I want to underline the unemployment. Well, as you know very well, the global economy has been in bad shape over the last several years. One of the common challenges facing the global community is high unemployment rate, particularly youth unemployment rate. We have to tackle on this issue over the last several years. But the downside of the fourth industrial revolution, which I'm concerned almost, is unemployment. Owing to the new technology, definitely, according to the report released by the World Economic Forum, Davos Forum, about 700,000 jobs will be disappeared within 5 years. This is possible because owing to the new technologies, so-called automation can be realized. That means that the business do not need the human beings as they needed in the past. Well, which means that without hiring labor forces as they did to achieve the productivity what they wanted to have, owing to the new technologies, definitely the productivity will be improved very dramatically without maintaining the labor forces as they had. So which means that many people will face losing their jobs. I think this will be one of the most serious concerns we have to have when we look at the outcomes of the fourth industrial revolution. And the other one is, as Dr. Bong already pointed out very well, the polarization of the labor market. I think this is directly related to unemployment rate. The labor market structure is directly related to the unemployment rate. So when you consider these two aspects, definitely we have to prepare for the expected outcome. In the labor market, in the future, I think it will be one of the serious challenges facing the global community, I think.
We have already begun to feel the heat coming out of this fourth industrial revolution in the political arena. It used to be a healthy separation between political changes and economic revolutions, but with the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution, the boundary between politics and economics has been blurred. The polarization in the labor market has a direct impact on the domestic politics in each country. Those haves will try to optimize their productivity line, but in terms of social welfare sharing, then unemployment should be one of the critical tasks for any government.
That also means that the boundary between politics and the common people is being blurred as well, because the fourth industrial revolution is supposed to empower the ordinary people.
Definitely. To make a long story short, when people, they are hunger, they do not feel, they are not happy. So when the economic situation is getting worse, we cannot expect the political stability. It's very simple theory of phenomena we can find very easily. So I think we can easily guess what kind of the situations we will have in the political arena when we guess the economic forecast prediction is not very good in the future. So which means that we have to consider the political aspects and the economic aspects as well. Whenever we discuss about the very important topics such as the fourth industrial revolution.
Not only these people are hungry and desperate, but they are now armed with a very good access to most advanced information. And they have the social platform via SNS to raise their voice on the common platform.
Right.
So the distance between the government and people is as narrow as it's ever been.
Every year, ahead of the Davos Forum, the World Economic Forum releases its Global Risks Report, listing the biggest problems the world is currently facing or is likely to face in the near future. This year was no exception. What do we have in this year's Global Risks Report?
Well, first of all, they said that the refugee issues will be one of the most serious challenges facing the global community. According to the report about the 600 million refugees right now we have around the world, this is one of the most serious challenges facing the global economy. Second one is climate change. Well, there are many problems we have because of the climate change. And the third one is actually the problems produced by the inappropriate measures taken by the national government around the world in dealing with the climate changes. I think this will be emerging one of the serious challenges facing the global community in the near future. Last one is the conflict, regional conflicts. These four things were suggested by the World Economic Forum report as the serious challenges or serious threats against the global community.
Well, climate change topped the list for the risks that will have the most impact in the future, but involuntary migration, large-scale involuntary migration, in other words, the refugee crisis topped the list for the most likely risk in 2016.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have to put it together, the crises that are most likely to happen, and the crisis whose impact will be the most devastating to the world. And in that regard, that we have to pay due attention to the rising problem of refugees. In 2014, the number of people who were against their own wills displaced in the world reached approximately 60 million, which is slightly more than the entire population of South Korea. So you can imagine that entire population of South Korea was displaced outside the Korean Peninsula in one single year of 2014. And during the Second World War, the entire refugee displaced from their homelands was only 40 million. So, which shows how significant and serious the refugee crisis today actually is. So this is directly related to the possibility of regional stability in the Middle East and in the world in general. Because now we are moving forward thanks to the first step in the right direction after the conclusion of the Iran nuclear deal. So we have to pay attention how the Middle East regional politics will play into and tie into the refugee crisis. The rest of the world was very mournful after witnessing the very unfortunate photo of the Kurit, the baby who drowned to death on the family's way to Turkey and Europe. But emotional support and sympathy is one thing, which is extremely important and necessary. But taking that emotional support into effective policy is still a very big challenge for the rest of the world. That topic will be very deeply and in detail discussed in the Davos Forum.
If I add one thing more on the top of Dr. Bong's explanation, that is, the refugee issue become more complicated because of the terrorism. We can see, we have heard several reports about the terrorist act committed by refugees in European countries. Because of these are the criminal or terrorist activities done by the refugees, well, the issue is getting complicated. What I mean is that, the European countries face serious challenges from the people themselves. So I think it can be a kind of additional political burden on the national government. And another thing which I wanted to add is, right now, Mediterranean countries like Turkey, Turkey has quite good economic foundations, but the other countries who have received a huge number of refugees from Syria or other African countries, they do not have strong economic foundations, which means that the European Union and the other big countries like the USA should provide the financial aid to these Mediterranean countries. But as far as I know, they are not helpful in some sense. If I give some data, since 2011, the USA government has provided about $4 billion on the Syrian humanitarian assistance. Well, $4 billion is not small money, but I'm considering the number of the refugees, it's not enough. And also they just have given refugees to only 1,500 the Syrians, very small number comparing the total refugee population. And of course the USA government announced that by the end of 2016 they will accept 10,000 Syrians more, and then by within 2 years they will also additionally allow to settle down in USA to 30,000 global refugees. These kind of the efforts made by USA is like a kind of positive changes. We can find it out around the world. But still there are many difficulties to solve these refugee issues. I think the global community should cooperate more, more to settle down this issue. But one thing which is really I'm concerned about is that global economic situations. Global economy is in a bad shape, so many countries have some financial burden. On the top of the financial difficulties, political burden, as I already explained, I think is getting going out of some main road. In an effort to settle down this issue, I think.
Well, Europe has had to bear the brunt of the refugee crisis, right?
Yeah, what's quite conspicuous is the absence of, a prominent political figure in this year's Davos Forum, which is the Chancellor of Germany, Merkel. Because in the aftermath of a very unfortunate incident by the refugees, sexual harassment to the German citizens, then the public opinion in Germany has been taking a different direction, more hostile toward the open door policy toward the Syrian refugees. Now, Germany has housed more than 1 million refugees, and almost 40% of them originated from Syria. So this will be a very difficult and sensitive domestic political issue. And as Professor Shin correctly pointed out, when the political situation are tied to grievances on a very difficult economic situation, then it'll be a very volatile issue to be dealt with.
Did you know there's actually a simulation program at the Davos Forum called A Day in the Life of a Refugee, where these delegates get to experience what it's like to run from conflict or violence. Apparently it's quite a popular program.
Well, yes, I think it's good. It's significant to see those kind of programs, but I doubt personally how much it will work out to settle down this issue. But definitely, I think this program itself is quite interesting, and as well as it's very important to draw the attention about this issue from the global community. But to settle down this issue, actually, we need very concrete efforts. Otherwise, I think it will not be easy for us to see settle down to solve this issue in the near future, I think.
Do you think what is essentially a business meeting ground, like Davos, will be able to play a leading role in changing the global economy for the better?
To some sense, of course. I mean, it started in 1971. The beginning was not very big, but right now it's one of the most influential meetings affecting the global economic issues and global even political issues. Considering the mechanism, I mean the contribution of the Davos Forum to the efforts solving the global issues, well, they discussed firstly at the meeting, and then as we discussed before, many political leaders and government leaders participate in this forum these days. They share the opinion and then the ideas about these issues, and then when they return to their country, some cases they realize this idea in the form of the policies. So this is kind of mechanism showing how Davos Forum has contributed to the solving global issues. So I think in this context, definitely Davos Forum has contributed to solving the global issues to some degree, I think.
We know that in addition to the formal sessions, there are lots of private sessions that are held on the sidelines, as well as one-on-one dialogues between world leaders and business leaders. How would these discussions shape future foreign relations?
Well, it's a role of the so-called epistemic community that people with expert ideas gather to share their concerns, interests, and advanced knowledge so that they put the seed that will be spread toward a wider range of audiences for public good consumption. So it is a part of the so-called forum diplomacy, not only the diplomacy in a traditional sense in which the government-to-government dialogue and communication would dominate, or the different kind of diplomacy called the public diplomacy, which is mainly targeted to persuade general audiences, the foreign public, to enhance a country's own images and values. This is a more focused approach that expert to expert, not only comprising with government officials, but NGO leaders and the private sectors and business leaders, so that it is wide enough, but at the same time focused enough, so that the impact of the message to be shared will be having far more longer effect.
One thing which I added up is that, within a very short period, most influential persons get together. I think this is very important. Well, normally to get an idea, to meet the person who has some creative idea is very important. In this context, they could meet many people, but many people, they are not simple ordinary people. They are leaders of the private sector, the politics, NGOs, and civil society and government. So they can get the idea, huge idea in a very short time. I think it will be very significant aspect of the Davos Forum.
Right. I'd like to cite two examples in which those very close person-to-person meeting in the sideline of Davos Forum changed the world history. One example is the first ever ministerial meeting between the two Koreas discussing their common issues in 1989. And in the same year, in the Davos Forum, the Eastern German leader and Helmut Kohl, the then Chancellor of West Germany, met rather secretly to discuss the future of potential unified Germany. So Davos Forum is very important, not only in the stage, but behind the scene.
Well, climate change has been a regular topic of discussion at Davos, but this year it's even more prominent because, as we said earlier, it is at the top of the global risks report. This is actually the first time that an environmental risk topped the ranking. How do you think governments and businesses should go about tackling this issue?
I think there will be a very in-depth discussion among leaders about how to make most out of the recent climate change conference held in Paris to bear right fruit. The climate change conference called the 21st COP, the Conference of Parties, produced another agreement potentially to replace the 1997 Kyoto Protocol after 2010. But getting the commitment from the related parties to the climate change should be tied to making them take necessary actions to make the concrete effort.
Well, the fact that it is at the top of the global risks report, despite the Paris Agreement in December, shows that maybe there's not enough confidence in what was agreed upon in Paris.
Yes. Well, in fact, the significance of the Paris Agreement is draw the more attention from the two major emission gas producers, USA and China. I mean, before the Paris Agreement was adopted by 195 countries while participating in the Paris conference. The two countries agreed on the basic principle, but they did not show any commitment. But after the Paris Agreement, they showed their full-fledged commitment to the decisions made by the Paris Agreement, which means that they will take the initiatives in an effort to solve these climate change issues. In this context, I think at the Davos Forum this year, they discuss about how to double the renewable energies. I think this is very important to solving climate change issues. By reducing emission gases. Emission gases are mainly produced by the traditional manufacturing industry. So when they control use the traditional fuel, energies, definitely that is the first step which every government should take in an effort to reduce the emission gas, which is the basic principle of the Paris Agreement. So in other words, the private sector should make every effort to develop new technologies, replacing the traditional energies, renewable new energies. I think this is the one concrete effort the private sector should make in order to solve these climate change issues. And how about the government? Actually, government right now, many national government has made every effort to make the institutional framework to prevent us from increasing the temperature and preventing us from having the global earth warming. I think so. At the moment, I think we are right now taking the first step only, but the cooperation between the government and the private sector seems to be very crucial for us in an effort to solve this issue. I think another good example is the government should provide many financial aid to the private sector to develop new technologies. Needed for having renewable, fresh energies, I think.
Well, it's been pointed out by the World Economic Forum on previous occasions that we have a lack of leadership in the world today, something of a leadership crisis, because the international community, if we look at it, has failed to solve any major global issue in recent years. Would you agree, Dr. Bong?
I do. Take me to your leader has been the slogan outcried by international community for the past few years. But we have to also pay attention to the fact that not only we need a traditional sense of leadership, global leadership, but also different kind of leadership to make most of the new era in world economy and politics. Because we tend to pay only attention to only the traditional kind of leadership based upon physical assets or capability, like military power, economic power. But there are many other kinds of leaderships that can benefit the entire world, dealing with the impact of the fourth industrial revolution, such as their ability to set the right agenda for the rest of the community, which is called entrepreneurial leadership, promoting ideas that will eventually serve mutual interest, and the connecting or bridging leadership that can be played but not only by the superpowers but the middle power, who can bridge the opinions represented by the global haves and the global have-nots developing community. And international institutions can be a very good substitute for sovereign governments to provide collective leadership, as well illustrated during the Cold War by Western Europe's initiatives to create the détente, so reconciliation between formerly adversary countries. And Davos Forum represents a different kind of leadership based upon provision of insights and intellectual leaderships. Ideas have power. Ideas will provide people to think about the future in different ways. And when people's volition about the better future is tied with the government's action, then you can see the fruits of the international leadership based upon the intellectual motivations.
Do you think we have a leadership crisis in the world today, Professor Shin?
Well, I fully agree with the last comment of Dr. Bong. Actually, Davos Forum provided the different aspects of the leadership to us. Well, when you discuss about leadership, the discussion about leadership should be, have been based on the economic power, and political power, well, even military power. Those things have been the pre-requirement for the discussion about the leadership. But at Davos Forum, the leadership discussed at Davos Forum has different dimensions and different perspectives. Without those kind of requirement, all participants can have a chance to share their ideas. I think someone criticized the limits of Davos Forum because those discussions are not based on reality. But I think there can be a strong points of the Davos Forum. I mean, when you discuss without any given framework or given limits, we can open our ideas and creativity. Then I think they will be able to contribute to solve various global common issues, I think. So this is the very valuable aspects of Davos Forum, I think.
In fact, we've seen many of the outcomes of the discussions at Davos become materialized into national and sometimes international policies, right?
Right. Many of the ideas and proposals discussed and agreed upon at the Davos Forum could be found in the past important agreements made in G8 and G20 summits. And one interesting aspect of this year's Davos Forum I see is its emphasis on humanity. The organizers repeatedly emphasize on its website of Davos Forum that it's all about humanity. Fusion of physical capability, economic significance, innovations are important, but it's all about making us more human. And there's a panel organized by Yo-Yo-Ma, how music can change the world across the border. And one good example showing it's a collective commitment and effort to combine economic innovation and humanity is the US Vice President Joe Biden's panel entitled as a Moonshot Initiative to Find a Cure for Cancer. This is not only important for the humankind in their collective fight against the cancer, but this is a very personal commitment for Vice President Biden because he lost his son a few years ago because of brain cancer. So he took the initiatives, taking advantage of his political clout and influence to make a movement to make more data sharing available and more patient information treatment outcomes to be shared by hospitals across the borders. So when you combine humanities and personal initiatives with the power of innovation, then Davos Forum can be one of the venue that you'll see the beginning of the brighter future for all mankind, not just some of them.
But they actually, draw the line distinguishing the role of human beings and so-called artificial intelligence. Well, according to the outcomes of the one session, they said that we can replace robots, instead of the human labor forces. But robots should be controlled by human beings. I think we have some movies showing the situations happening in the future. Robots control the human beings. But I think the Davos Forum, at Davos Forum, the participants discuss about the basic value should be put on the mankind itself.
Well, as we speak, the forum is coming to a close, so let's keep our fingers crossed for some positive and tangible outcome this time around. Thank you very much, Professor Shin and Dr. Pong, for your insights today.
My pleasure, yes.
We discussed the Davos Forum in detail in this edition of News Inside. That is all for now. Thanks for watching. We will see you again next week.